NUS Chairman, Trustees, NUS President, distinguished guests, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the memorial ceremony in honor of Mr. Kuan Yew, Singapore's founding Prime Minister and NUS eminent alumnus. I'm Johan from the Office of Corporate Relations, and I'll be your Master of Ceremonies for this afternoon. To begin the program, we would like to play a video screening of the man and his impact.
Merdeka! Lagi sekali yang bersemangat merdeka!
He's the founder of the nation. He led Singapore from British colony to independent country. Striving for unity among races and nationalities. An enduring heartbreak in the process.
You see, the whole of my adult life, if we lack the guts and the gumption to stand up for ourselves, then I say, write it off, forget it.
He stretched to put the fledgling nation on the world map.
And I'm prepared to start all over again. This is entrepreneurship on the political stage, on a national scale. We changed the complexion of Singapore.
Lee was drawn to politics by the brutality he witnessed during the Japanese occupation. The discrimination he experienced studying at Cambridge in England reinforced his belief. He formed the People's Action Party in 1954, enrolling both pro and non-communists with one common goal: independence from the British. In 1955, Lee won the Tanjong Pagar seat in his first election, after which he never looked back. In 1959, the British granted Singapore self-governance. Lee then led the PAP to win the Legislative Assembly elections and became Singapore's first Prime Minister.
We have in our party men whose integrity and ability have been proved over the years in the struggle to build up the mass movement of the PAP. Their dedication to the cause of an independent, democratic, non-communist, socialist Malaya gives them the drive that will make the machinery of government work efficiently on your behalf.
But self-governance brought with it a slew of challenges. Without the British as their common enemy, fault lines within the PAP widened, and pro-communists in the party left to form the Barisan Socialists in 1961. Divisions deepened further when Lee started to fight for Singapore's merger with Malaysia.
Make the people feel that they are wanted. Not stepchildren or stepbrothers, but one in the family and a very important member of the family.
A referendum was called.
In the next few months, we shall settle the constitutional arrangements for merger. In this series of broadcasts, I hope to tell you what merger means, why it's good for all of us.
After intense campaigning and through his persuasive powers, the voters supported the merger. In 1963, Singapore was declared part of the Federation of Malaysia.
Now I, Lee Kuan Yew, Prime Minister of Singapore, do hereby proclaim and declare on behalf of the people of Singapore that as from today, the 16th of September, 1963, Singapore shall forever be a part of the sovereign, democratic, and independent state of Malaysia, founded upon the principles of liberty and justice, and ever seeking the welfare and happiness of our people in a more just and a more equal society.
But the euphoria was short-lived. The PAP wanted a Malaysian Malaysia, while UMNO, Malaysia's ruling party, believed in Malay supremacy. Despite Lee's efforts to safeguard the merger, the situation became untenable when riots broke out between the Malays and the Chinese in Singapore.
And these differences take so many forms and are of so many kinds that it has not been possible to resolve them. And so we decided that we must part company.
On August 9, 1965, Singapore was separated from Malaysia.
Every time we look back on this moment when we signed this agreement which severed Singapore from Malaysia, it will be a moment of anguish. I mean, for me, it is a moment of anguish because all my life, you see, the whole of my adult life, I had believed in Malaysian merger and the unity of these two territories. You know, as a people connected by geography, economics, and ties of kinship, would you mind if we stop for a while?
Lee's resilient spirit prevailed. Putting the pain he endured behind him, he started to rally the people and began the arduous climb towards nationhood.
And we will set the example. This country belongs to all of us. We made this country from nothing, from mud flats. Here we make the model multiracial society. This is not a country that belongs to any single community. It belongs to all of us. This was a mud flat, swamp. Today, this is a modern city. 10 years from now, this will be a metropolis. Never fear.
Lee worked tirelessly with his able team to secure Singapore's future. National service was introduced to build up its own defense quickly. But in 1968, out of the blue, Britain announced its intention to withdraw its troops from Singapore. Lee feared for Singapore's security and economy.
The security of the whole region will be very seriously jeopardized unless some rapid rearrangements are made to ensure continuing security, without which there is no confidence, and without confidence, the boom that we have been having in industrial expansion, so much so now that we haven't got one single industrial site vacant.
To grow the economy, Lee made links with the developed world and encouraged foreign investments. And in less than 40 years, the World Bank reclassified Singapore from a less developed to a developed country. Lee focused his efforts on providing a better life for Singaporeans. To this end, no feat was too difficult for him. Lee went as far as transforming the once foul-smelling Singapore River into a glistening waterway. And to make Singapore more self-sufficient in its water needs, he defied the elements, preserving every drop of water for drinking. Befriending nature seemed to come easily to Lee. His green initiative culminated in the launch of the breathtaking Gardens by the Bay. It started with Lee planting a tree in 1963, a tradition he never failed to keep. Singapore's transformation into a city in a garden is testimony to Lee's determination to achieve anything he set his mind to, even when it meant defying nature. To Lee, Singapore's well-manicured green landscapes testify to its ability to deliver consistently.
So without having to tell anything to the CEO, I knew that he would understand that when I say we will deliver, he knows that we can deliver. That this is a country where the administration works, where there's a system, because you can't just plant a tree and walk away.
Atau rasa lemah. Adakah Singapura?
Keenly conscious of his young nation's vulnerabilities, Lee grabbed every opportunity and every platform to remind Singaporeans about them.
Shower on them what you didn't have.
He'd written in his memoirs, "We had said that an independent Singapore was simply not viable. Now it was our unenviable task to make it work." He turned his National Day rally into a television broadcast to reach as many Singaporeans as possible.
And year after year, you make speeches and you keep on pushing buttons, nothing happens. So, I'm emigrating. We've got one little island, 600 square kilometers. You unwind this, you will not drop down on soft paddy fields. It's hard concrete, your bones are broken, and it's kaput. And you know that Singapore has only one chance, and that is to go up. Tighter, more discipline, up the ladder. You unwind this. There's curtains for everybody.
Against the backdrop of Singapore's multi-ethnic makeup, Lee was conscious of how intolerance could unravel the nation's delicate social fabric. His government pursued a deliberate ethnic integration policy. He insisted that everyone should be treated as an equal, and came down hard on anyone who stirred up issues of race, language, or religion.
And let there be no mistakes about this. Whoever governs Singapore must have that iron in him, or give it up. This is not a game of cards. This is your life and mine.
After we became independent, the point which he always reiterated was never do to the minorities in Singapore what happened to us when we were a minority in Malaysia. Always make sure that the Malays, that most Indians have their space, can live their way of life, and have full and equal opportunities.
I, Lee Kuan Yew, having been appointed to the office of Prime Minister, do solemnly affirm
Lee
I
had
will
more
bear
than fulfilled his oath to Singapore,
to the Republic of Singapore,
and when it was time, he could hand over to his successor a nation no longer frail, but prosperous and thriving.
I hope I've helped to consolidate Singapore's advance in economic growth and social development. More important, I hope I have got together a core group of younger ministers who can make for continuity of honest, effective, and responsive government.
I, Lee Hsien Loong,
Leadership renewal became an institutionalized process in the PAP,
office of Prime Minister, do solemnly affirm
with leadership changing hands peacefully from one prime minister to the next. Lee continued to contribute to Singapore. He did this as an elder statesman to further Singapore's interest in the world and as the persuader of Singaporeans on domestic issues.
And your values. If I knew what my career would be.
感谢大家，感谢你们。
Lee Kuan Yew stepped down from the cabinet after the 2011 general election. His legacy, the thriving Singapore of today.
Could I have lived my life differently? Maybe yes, but probably not. At each stage, I made what was then the best choice. Having taken that decision, I had changed direction and there was no turning back.
May I now invite NUS Students' Union President, Mr. Lim Kok Sing, to deliver his eulogy. Mr. Lim, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, our founding father of modern Singapore, was a firm and benevolent man. A few years ago, when US President Barack Obama welcomed Mr. Lee to the White House, he cited Mr. Lee as one of the legendary figures of Asia in the 20th and 21st centuries, acknowledging him with vital responsibility for the Asian economic miracle. Mr. Heng Swee Keat, Minister for Education, who was the then Principal Private Secretary to Mr. Lee from mid-1997 to early 2000s, described Mr. Lee's uncanny ability to offer views that are so coherent, rigorous, and fresh, and how he put his agile mind in the service of the Singapore cause. Our loss of such an outstanding and multi-talented man, and our memories of Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, be it as a leader, as a politician, and as a believer that Singapore can make it, will continue to live in our souls, our books, and our Lion City. Singapore, under Mr. Lee Kuan Yew's visionary leadership, has accomplished many triumphs, which may seem too good and too easy to be true. His selflessness can be seen even during the early days of Singapore when she was still under the British colonial rule. Despite being admitted to the English bar, Mr. Lee returned to Singapore in 1950 to practice law, fighting for the lowly represented trade unions and associations, earning significantly less than what he could have as a lawyer. At times when he felt that the cause was worthy and the clients were needy, he would waive his fees entirely. Struggles arose after World War II, frustrations were mounting under the British rule, and Singapore was abuzz with talks of constitutional reform and independence in the 1950s. It was during this time that Mr. Lee envisioned the formation of the People's Action Party to challenge the British on governing a Singapore free from colonial powers. The events that took place after he pushed ahead with his plan is now history. Mr. Lee led the party to victory in the 1959 general elections. This was the first of 8 such victories, which that saw him taking up the leadership as the Prime Minister of Singapore amid turbulent times. Without Mr. Lee's resilience, Singapore would not have been the self-governing state which merged with Malaysia in 1963. Following the separation from Malaysia, the challenges that Singapore faced in 1965 are commonly known by us. Mr. Lee believed that for a small city-state to survive and prosper, it has to stay open and interconnected with nations as well as economic powerhouses over the world. More importantly, Singapore has to stay strong and united, as our people are the main resource. The threats of insufficient natural resources, limited defense capability, poor housing and rising unemployment were real tangible issues which Mr. Lee had to grapple within this fledgling nation. Yet undeterred, Mr. Lee put forth his bold plan in action and set forth the direction towards a prosperous and self-reliant Singapore. Building Singapore as an economic hub with a strong business orientation would not be possible without Mr. Lee's push for strong institutional support and training of dedicated middle-class workforce. I quote Minister Heng Swee Keat, "Mr. Lee's most significant achievement is to show the way forward in building a nation. There were and still are no textbook answers for achieving this. Mr. Lee and his team will analyze the issues from first principles and had the courage and conviction to do what was right and what will work for Singapore. Mr. Lee is an activist. He and his team would try, adapt, and experiment to get on with the job to making Singapore a better home for all." Mr. Lee was Prime Minister for 25 years, making him one of the longest serving Prime Minister in the world. Even after he stepped down in 1990, he remained active in political and social issues as Senior Minister and later Minister Mentor. He continued to engage generations of Singaporeans and world leaders alike, sharing the lessons that he had learned during his years in office, as well as the hard truths that he believes Singaporeans must confront to maintain the stability and prosperity they enjoy today. Such was his dedication, passion, and commitment to Singapore. Beyond Mr. Lee's extraordinary achievements, he has been and always will be a true inspiration for both the NUS and the wider community. He had dedicated his entire life in service of his people and country. While we are constantly reminded of our constraints as a literate dot in the world, his passion and leadership continue to give us hope and a sense of why we are here together, right now. Qualities that in all inspire all of us to excel further for the future of South Singapore. As students and future leaders of our country, we are thankful for Mr. Lee's dedicated leadership and engagement with various stakeholders, which has helped build the strong foundations of Singapore today. Mr. Lee once said, he has sung 4 different national anthems in his lifetime. Today, we are fortunate to uphold one national anthem in this very uncertain world that we live in. For one who has experienced the harrowing days of war and the dominance of foreign rule, the upheaval of communist insurgency and racial riots, and the long uphill task to secure Singapore's independence. This short speech certainly falls short of all the sacrifices that Mr. Lee had made in his entire life. Today, Singapore has lost our founding father, and we stand firm in solidarity on the grounds of Singapore, remembering one of our greatest leaders in our time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lim. Next, the Yong Siew To Conservatory of Music String Quartet will be playing slow movement from Mendelssohn's String Quartet in A minor. Thank you, YSTCM String Quartet. May I now invite NUS President, Professor Tan Chaw Chuan, to deliver his eulogy. Prof. Tan, please.
Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, the founding father of modern Singapore. Born on 16 September 1923 to Lee Chin Koon and Chua Jim Neo, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew grew up in Singapore, where he emerged as top student in Singapore and Malaya in the school certificate examinations. This earned him the John Anderson Scholarship to attend Raffles College. And this afternoon, it is very fitting that we gather to pay our tribute to Mr. Lee at this very location, where he studied economics, English literature, and mathematics in 1940. It was also here at what is today NUS's Bukit Timah campus that Mr. Lee met his future wife, Madam Kwa Giok Chu, and several future colleagues. The Second World War and the Japanese occupation of Singapore interrupted his university education. After the war, he went to England, where he completed his law education at Fitzwilliam College, Cambridge University, obtaining a rare double first. He was called to the bar there and returned to Singapore to practice law, but only for a short period. Driven by his conviction that Singapore should strive for self-government and provide a much better life for ordinary people, he entered politics. In 1959, he became the first Prime Minister of Singapore, a position he held for 30 years, until November 1990, when he handed over to ESM Goh Chok Tong. Mr. Lee is deeply respected and admired for many things. His unique and remarkable accomplishments are well known and well recognized. His single greatest achievement is the transformation of Singapore through his strong and visionary leadership from a third world country to a first world nation in just 3 decades. He is held in the highest regard as a profound and far-sighted thinker, a global visionary, and the preeminent international statesman of his age. Much has been said and written about Mr. Lee, his remarkable qualities, and his many lasting contributions. Of these, I'd like to say something about education, which was always one of Mr. Lee's key concerns. In 1966, a year after Singapore obtained independence, he met with school principals and pushed the idea, which was novel at that time, that every child should be developed to his or her fullest potential. He said, and I quote, "The ideal product is a student, the university graduate, who is strong, robust, rugged, with tremendous qualities of stamina, endurance, great intellectual discipline, and most important of all, humility and love for his community, a readiness to serve whether God or king or country, or if you like, just his community," unquote. Mr. Lee was truly instrumental in the shaping and development of higher education in Singapore, and in particular, the university sector. He firmly believed that the talent development was not just crucial, but absolutely essential for Singapore's progress and continued success, as people is Singapore's only resource. In the late 1970s, even though Singapore had enjoyed strong, sustained economic growth for several years, he identified the need to raise skills training and talent development to a higher plane to meet the growing demands of a newly industrializing economy. He foresaw that the demand for more and better trained graduates and professionals will continue to grow, a responsibility entrusted to the National University of Singapore, which was established in 1980. Today, NUS is widely recognized to be one of the leading universities in the world. And in this, as with many institutions and achievements in Singapore, we owe much to the leadership and foresight of Mr. Lee Kuan Yew. Personally, I've had the good fortune to have interacted with Mr. Lee on several occasions in the past. I remember in particular a presentation to him on the biomedical sciences, which I had to coordinate in the year 2000. All of us who were present were simply awed by the sheer power of his intellect, his penetrating insights that went straight to the heart of the most central issues, and his strategic and far-sighted perspectives. Mr. Lee was indeed a very rare talent. His deep sense of purpose, the many outstanding qualities and virtues that he exemplified, these will serve as a powerful and enduring beacon, not just for all of us in NUS, but in the broader community in Singapore and beyond. Today, we reflect with great sadness and profound gratitude on the passing of a truly great man, a person of exceptional qualities and who encompassed a unique combination of remarkable talents, a leader whose singular passion, powerful vision, and tireless efforts have created the thriving and successful Singapore that we love and enjoy today. Today, the NUS community, together with all Singaporeans, bids farewell and thank you to Singapore's founding father, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew. I believe he would have been proud of what he has achieved amongst the students of NUS in Singapore. The quartet we've heard created beautiful music, the notes of which have wafted up in the air like silent prayers in gratitude and thanks to this great man. May I invite you all to stand and to join me in a minute of silence in tribute to our eminent alumnus and Singapore's first Prime Minister, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Tan. Thank you once again, Wise TCM String Quartet. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of the memorial ceremony. Before you leave, please take a moment to sign the condolence books we've placed at the back of the foyer. These condolence books are also located till Friday at University Hall, Visitors Center at University Town, Central Library, and finally at the Duke NUS GMS Outram campus. Thank you for attending today and for being part of this memorial ceremony.